So we have a couple of questions today from our members. Always love getting those questions. So why don't we start? You do such a good job of reading it.
I'll read them.
So
I'm the question organizer here.
She's the one that has the better eyes than I do.
And I may or may not love spreadsheets, so there's that too.
Technology geek?
I am a total geek. Yep. I own it, love it. It's all good. Okay, so we had one question that I think we're going to break up into two parts because there are some really rich pieces in this question that we want to address thoroughly. So I'm going to read it in full and then we'll kind of take it apart. So why are we so hard on ourselves? A friend and I both have an eating disorder. Mine makes me carry more weight, hers to carry less. We love each other, but at times I wonder how she can possibly love me for being what scares her the most, and vice versa. I would be terrified to be as small as she is. I know this is a tough one, but it's one that's weighed heavy on my heart for a while now. I'm really glad you shared that with all of us.
Absolutely. You know, it is. It's about taking that stuff that is heavy on your heart, that is influencing you, that you have not yet had the courage to kind of look at and share with other people, and being able to put it out there, hopefully without any kind of shame or self-judgment, and saying, what is this about? So thank you so much for doing that. And this is not an uncommon question. We get asked this many, many times, especially when people are coming together like in group therapy, you know, or sometimes in families or with friends. So it's not uncommon whatsoever. And, you know, let's start with the first part, because I think that the first part has underpinnings and then kind of the second part of the question. And, you know, why are we so hard on ourselves? You know, always, 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 that's the question, and the quest to change that, because sometimes we are our own worst critic. We are so self-judgmental, and we have such high and unreasonable expectations for ourselves that we end up, you know, just really giving ourselves these horrific messages, regardless of who you are in life and how you show up or what you've been able to achieve or accomplish, you know, whether it's this big, you know, grand, really big achievement, or just that you, not even just, but that you are a wonderful, beautiful person that's kind and loving and embraces others. So over and over and over again, it's so important to recognize that how you feel about yourself does not have a one-on-one correlation to the reality of your worth. It is your perception at present of your worth, because somewhere along the lines, this is what you have internalized, and this has become your belief system, you know, your view about yourself, okay? And many times this gets created very early in life. We call the early years the formative years for a reason, because that's when we really get informed about ourselves in all sorts of different ways that are highly influential, and primarily within the family of origin, our primary attachment figures that interact with us in a way that kind of mirrors how we then come to view ourselves. Okay, now these are terms that we've talked about in earlier VideoCasts, but again, all sorts of different circumstances that we have early in life, you know, from the reality of, let's say, those early attachment figures to your own emotional system, you know, which might be highly sensitive, which sometimes can be hyper, you know, vigilant and a little bit distorting. Maybe sometimes, you know, a parent can say one thing to one child and the same thing to the other, and they can hear it and take it in two different ways. Okay. So what have been your experiences, and what is your emotional system that then ends up creating, whether you are loving and accepting or compassionate towards yourself, or whether you might be judgmental or rejecting or critical. Okay.
And who have been the key players in your life early on who were hard on you.
Yeah.
And I know this wonderful member has shared some stories in the group. And, you know, I do recall some sharing of a parent figure kind of being a little hard, if I'm remembering right. So, you know, all of that can be done from a place of love and wanting to teach you valuable lessons and things like that. But like you were saying, if it lands on that sensitive soul, it can just really be crushing. And then it does internalize into how you end up talking to yourself. And so that's where that being so hard on yourself can come from. And to shift out of that is to really open up to this idea that you don't have to be hard on yourself to create progress and change and motivation, and that you can be imperfect and wonderful at the same time. This is the dialectic. That things can be messy and be okay at the same time, that you can be a work in progress and be incredible at the same time. So really allowing that imperfect place of just being a human to be okay within yourself, and starting to give yourself that new messaging that's really different, probably from the messaging you got when you were younger. And, you know, kind of playing with that and noticing how you feel within yourself when you try on these softer, more tender messages to yourself. I bet you'll find that you feel more relaxed. You feel more joyful.
Yeah. I'm just smiling because I'm thinking about examples of this, and I'm thinking about how many of our members just adore their pets. And are loving and accepting and tolerant of pets, regardless of what they look like, how much they weigh, what behaviors they do, right? They are just embraced and loved and adored. And so, excuse the cliche, but if we treat ourselves, if we embrace ourselves with that same just unconditional positive regard, you know, really to cherish ourselves, right, for who we are, right? All our quirks and our warts and our wonderful traits,
flaws,
right? Exactly. And to just kind of adore. You will find that you're not going to be so hard on yourself. You can laugh at yourself more readily. You're going to keep making mistakes and you're going to keep stumbling in life, but you're going to be able to laugh at yourself and have forgiveness and acceptance, which will go a long ways. Okay. And it will affect things like body image, all right, to kind of relate to what you're talking about in the second part of this question. So, you know, lots of reasons why you are hard on yourself. Please don't judge yourself for being hard on yourself. I have
don't be hard on yourself for being hard on yourself.
I have so many clients that just are so hard on themselves because they're so hard on themselves, you know, and so know that everything gets created for good reason. There's all these pieces of the puzzle that come together in this really meaningful, make sense way. And our task now is to understand it and to say, now I can change it moving forward. All right. So start looking at how you can be kinder to yourself and embrace yourself like you would. Just take your heart that's so loving towards others and turn it towards yourself.
Yeah, and I know what one of the fears that we hear a lot, and I think we've addressed this in other video casts, maybe even some of the Q&As, is, you know, if I soften to myself, if I am kind and loving, if I'm not beating myself up for every mistake I make, that I'm just going to get complacent or settle or be unmotivated or not keep trying to be my best self. And the paradox here is that the more you relax within yourself and give yourself grace, the more you actually do feel motivated and energized to keep trying and keep going. And when you're hard on yourself, it's like you put an emotional chokehold on that motivation and that desire, and all of that pressure kind of sucks the joy out of the process of being human and growing and evolving. So there's a real interesting paradox there, and it's counterintuitive, really, because we think if we crack the whip harder, we'll go harder. And it's actually the opposite. And you probably have evidence of this in your life because you do crack the whip so hard. And, you might find areas in your life where you kind of stalled out emotionally, or you find yourself shutting down. So, just toy with this idea of, relax things within yourself, soften your approach. Talk to yourself as you would a child, or those really precious pets that you all post on the on the community, and see what happens. Just open up to the possibility of a different outcome, and I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.